Hey, welcome. Today we're going to do something different. We're going to try an online lab. Normally I would give this lab to my physics students very early in the year, usually on like day 2 or something like that, and I would see how they do with some of these concepts. And the main question that we're trying to solve is what factors affect the period of a pendulum. Now, before we continue, we need to talk about what the period of a pendulum is. The period of a pendulum is the time for the pendulum bob, that's at the end over here, the pendulum bob to go over and back. That would be one full cycle. Sometimes students think this is a period right over here. If it just goes over, that time would only be half a period. We want the time for this bob, the pendulum, to go over and back again, and that would be the period. So, now that you know what a period is, the question I have is, what factors affect the period of a pendulum? Now I want you to start thinking about it right now. And I also want to say that it's important to know how to set up labs. Sometimes the best physics labs are the ones where I give the least amount of instruction. So I wouldn't give my students a procedure here. What I would ask them to do is to create their own procedure and write it in such a way that I know they understand what it means to control a variable. In other words, if you're going to vary something, if that's going to be your manipulated or independent variable, what do you want to do to the other variables that could affect the outcome? Well, you would want to control for them. That means you would want to hold them steady while you allow the manipulated or independent variable to vary or change. If you have no idea what I'm talking about right now, I'm going to put a link into the upper right so you can see a screencast I've done to help you to understand the background of what I'm saying right now. But if you're tracking with me so far, then I want you to think about, all right, well, what factors would affect the period of a pendulum? And please take a moment to pause the video and to write those factors down. Goal would be to usually test 2 of those factors, get data for them, make your graphs, understand what you're doing, analyze your data, and come up with your conclusion. Now, because this is all going to be online, I'm going to do a part 2 where I give you data, and I'm going to want you to do similar things, assuming that this given data is the data you're going to work with. But I still want you to stop right here and figure out what you would want to test, what factors you would want to test that may affect the period of a pendulum. And then what you're going to do is, after you've paused and thought about that or written it down, I'm going to want you to click in the upper right where I put the link to the second part of this series where I give you data on this pendulum lab. So hopefully this has been helpful, and stick around for part 2 and look in the upper right for that link.